Heya Cryptozens, welcome back to the Crypto Overnighter. My name is Nikodemus and we do crypto news analysis nightly at 10 p.m. And keep in mind, none of this should be considered financial advice. And it's Thursday, February 2nd, 2023. Happy Groundhog Day for any of you who celebrate it. And we have a CBDC alert, India, because Reliance Retail is rolling out support for its digital rupee in their line of gourmet stores. So in the line of stores, it's called FreshPick. And what's happening with them is their parent company, Reliance Retail, announced that they're accepting their first central bank digital currency in the form of a digital rupee. Now, this support from FreshPick is not theory. It's already happening. It's right now. This comes to us by the way of TechCrunch. Now, Reliance Retail said CBDC support is already in place for their FreshPick stores. In fact, they intend to expand support for the digital rupee to all their properties. One exec at the firm said accepting the digital rupee at their stores is in line with the company's vision, that of offering the power of choice to their consumers. So what they're claiming is this alternative form of payment increases the choice for their customers. And this was a group effort with ICICI Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Innoviti Technologies. So these four companies are the ones rolling out support for this CBDC. And what they're doing is, when you go to pay at the store, they give you a QR code to scan. So that's how the transaction gets started. Now, we talked about it last October, when the Reserve Bank of India brought out their plans for a central bank digital currency. Introduced on October 7th, the 51-page document covered both the potential good and bad aspects of adopting a CBDC. One of the central bank's motivators towards the digital rupee is the reduced operational cost you get when you take cash out of the equation. So last November, the Reserve Bank started their pilot with wholesale customers for banks and merchants. Last December saw the advent of their retail customer pilot with a closed user group. Now, staying on the CBDC thing for a little bit longer here, because China's had their program going for a while now. I mean, while there were other milestones along the way, I feel like the Winter Olympics is when their digital yuan project really kicked into high gear, considering it was the first time that they ever mass invited a bunch of non-citizens to use digital yuan. So this program's been going for a while now. Well, according to Chinese media, the February 1st annual meeting for the project was attended by senior Communist Party officials. So when they got to the outcomes section of the meeting, they set a specific key performance measure. They want to see 2 trillion digital yuan transactions by the end of this year. That's about $300 billion. So that's their landmark for success. Additionally, they set a target for processing digital yuan in the form of loans. They want to see $30 billion in loans processed for small and mid-sized businesses in Suzhou by the end of 2023. As a way of comparison, they did just over $50 billion worth last year. So they're asking for a 6x on the value of transactions processed. Which is okay. That is a thing you can measure. I would be looking at how many transactions are processed, not how many dollars are processed. And I would want to be seeing a nice hockey stick showing most of the transactions are at the lower transaction amounts. That would tell me that it's being used for casual purchases. But anyway, Communist China does not need me to tell them how to run their economy. Now, in addition to the increase in transacted currency, city officials are expected to oversee at least 1,000 new businesses in or related to the digital financial technology sector. That's within the city of Suzhou and working on areas like AI, data, cloud computing, blockchain, and machine learning. They have 371 such businesses currently. They want to see 1,000 of them by the end of 2025. Again, that's not the KPI I would have chosen. Just 1,000 businesses doesn't mean much. How strong are those businesses? Are they making changes? Are they even making money? But then again, they didn't ask me. But maybe they should have. Or maybe they should have asked Huang Yiping. Now, he is a former member of the Monetary Policy Committee at the People's Bank of China. It's his belief that China should reconsider the long-term consequences of a ban on crypto. I imagine he has to phrase that criticism very delicately. Well, it was in a speech last December that Huang spoke up about his concerns, and they're kind of similar to the concerns I was talking about earlier regarding India. He was talking about missed opportunities for the financial system as a whole, especially where it comes to blockchain technology and the tokenization of assets. He sees crypto-related technologies as being vital regulated financial systems. He said, quote, "Banning cryptocurrencies may be practical in the short term, but whether it's sustainable in the long run deserves an in-depth analysis." And like many folks, he recognizes the need for a good regulatory foundation for crypto to build on. He said, quote, "There is no particularly good way to ensure stability and function as to how cryptocurrencies should be regulated, especially for a developing country. But ultimately, an effective approach may still need to be found." But he wasn't completely team crypto, though. He said that there are still many risks with cryptocurrencies. In fact, he really doesn't see Bitcoin as a currency at all. He views it more like a digital asset, because he said it lacks intrinsic value. And we know that China is imposing some key performance measures around their central bank digital currency project. Well, he had to admit the digital yuan has failed to achieve the expected market penetration, given the project actually launched years ago. He brought up the idea of stablecoins based on the digital yuan. He said that it was a, quote, "very sensitive question, but one worth asking." As it currently stands, blockchain technology is perfectly legal in China. Crypto is not. You can live in China and own NFTs, for example, and the government just doesn't care. But virtually all crypto ownership was banned in 2021. That said, as I reported last May in an episode called Underground Chinese Bitcoin Miners, Bitcoin mining didn't completely disappear in China. As of January last year, they were still in second place. In some cases, they figured out how to use the rivers to provide the electricity completely off-grid. Electrical draw is one of the big giveaways for these mining operations, so that makes a lot of sense. Bringing things back here to the United States, Senator Tim Scott, a Republican on the Senate Banking Committee, is ready to get to work. The senator from South Carolina said that he's ready to work on bipartisan regulation for the crypto industry. In a statement on Thursday, he said, quote, "The committee should work to facilitate a bipartisan regulatory framework," which, honestly, I don't think I've ever heard him talk about crypto. It might be because former Senator Toomey was the ranking member of that committee, and Toomey was such a proponent of crypto. I will be interested to see what we get out of Senator Scott. His statement on Thursday listed his 7 priorities for the upcoming session of Congress. Crypto regulation is one of those priorities, and frankly, he sounds a little concerned, and for good reason. He said, quote, "Recent years have seen expansive growth in the digital assets industry, including an increasing number of consumers interacting with cryptocurrencies. Several high-profile failures resulted in lost customer assets, exposed regulatory gaps, and highlighted concerns with illicit finance," which is a fair criticism, I'd say. Now, the Senate Banking Committee chairman has already signaled his readiness to get to work on crypto regulations. After months of silence on the issue, last November, he sent a letter to U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Now, he told her at the time that he's ready to get to work on an expansive regulatory framework. Now, if things start moving through the SBC, that will indeed be a change. Because honestly, they've been something of a roadblock, or at least a bottleneck, for any crypto regulatory efforts. The Senate Ag Committee and the House Financial Services Committee have made much more progress than their colleagues in the Senate Banking Committee. Maybe things will turn around. Smart contracts are coming under the microscope in the EU. Right now, there are some pretty onerous-looking plans underway, and that might be changing. So what happened is the European Parliament reached consensus on a new section of the Data Act. Specifically, the smart contract section shrank, both in terms of size and scope. This new draft alleviates a couple of requirements from people selling smart contracts. They'll no longer need to sign a declaration that they're following EU requirements. The other part removes the need for a conformity assessment. Also dropped were harmonized standards and technical compliance specifications. Now, previously, the law covered a large group of people involved in the process of smart contracts, like vendors and deployment specialists. That scope has been reduced down to cover, quote, the contractual party offering a smart contract. However, the draft law still tightly controls some areas in terms of crypto technology regulation. In addition to technical requirements such as rigorous access control systems, smart contracts will be expected to offer the same level of protection and same level of legal certainty as any other kind of contracts, no matter the source. Same instrument, same rules. If the committee adopts the text on February 9th, then it will go to an all-hands vote in Parliament, expected to happen in March. The calls for an independent examiner in the case of FTX's bankruptcy have grown louder. Officials from more than 12 states want one, and they're petitioning the federal judge in charge of the case to allow a third party to take a look at FTX's finances. They're citing transparency concerns. And I get that, because a lot of money seems to have disappeared already. The Texas State Securities Board was joined by officials from the states of Alaska, Arkansas, California, Florida, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Kentucky, Maine, Maryland, New Hampshire, New Jersey, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and Tennessee, as well as the District of Columbia. In their filing, they cited, quote, the magnitude and history of mismanagement of both FTX and Alameda Research from the very people who were supposed to take care of it. This was borne out in testimony by the new CEO, John J. Ray III. Those state officials said basically the lack of transparency so far, combined with the ongoing investigations, those conditions require an independent examiner. This follows requests from two other states, Vermont and Wisconsin, as well as a similar request from the U.S. Trustee's Office. And independent examiners can really get the dirt. We covered it the other night where the investigator in the Celsius bankruptcy trial has basically proved that not only was Celsius a Ponzi scheme, all the people at the top knew about it. They talked about it. They emailed each other about it. And that's likely what would happen here. Instead of the filters of the FTX current and former leadership teams, a third party should better be able to track the middle road to the truth. As it stands, FTX lawyers and leadership are against hiring one. They're citing cost concerns. Speaking of FTX, we have some FTX-related news. So, ATOM stands for Association for Digital Assets Markets. They're a trade association for crypto. They've been effectively rudderless since the beginning of the year, so they're looking for some help. What happened is their CEO, Michelle Bond, and their head of policy, Robert Baldwin, they quit. They left the group, and they were the only two full-time employees. So now the group was needing some help. Now, remember the Senate Banking Committee we were talking about earlier? Baldwin, who has experience with the Treasury Department, he joined the Senate Banking Committee as a national security advisor. I have no idea where Michelle Bond landed. She made an unsuccessful bid for Congress in New York, and that was the last I heard of her. Brad Volpe is the board's president as well as the head of digital assets at Hudson River Trading. He sent an email to the association's members. He wrote, quote, "We believe ATOM's role as an industry-led group with the roster of high-quality organizations committed to good market structure and advocating for thoughtful regulation is paramount." And so why is this happening? Well, I can't say for sure, but it may be FTX's fault. Because in February of last year, both FTX and FTX US were admitted as board members. Michelle Bond was sitting behind Sam Bankman-Fried in December of 2021 when he testified in front of the HFSC. Now, reportedly, using both the FTX and FTX US brands, SBF spent more than $1.2 million per year on lobbying. That includes both internal efforts as well as contracts with outside firms like Conaway Graves. So maybe Bond and Baldwin just wanted to get as far away from FTX as possible. I could certainly understand not wanting to have the stink of Sam about you. And that's going to do it for us tonight. I want to thank you, my listeners, because when you stop listening, I will stop talking. And if you like the show, please like, follow, subscribe. Do something to let the algorithms know that this show is worth listening to. And until then, we'll see you tomorrow night.